The Kent Mountains are one of the most picturesque places of central Kazakhstan. Every visitor of Karkaralinsk is inspired to see those fanciful spruce-covered cliffs. From the south side, the Kent Mountains resemble a mighty, impregnable wall rising over the steppe. Water and wind sculpt them for millions of years. Nowadays, one may discern faces of the holy elders, shapes of birds, animals, pangolins, and creatures unknown to the world among the rocks. There are many mysteries and secrets kept by mountains of Kent. One of them is the Kyzyl Kent Palace, the ruins of which are located in Kyzyl Kent Gorge. Many famous explorers were writing about this historical monument starting from 19th century. Year 1824, April, Easter days. Colonel Simon Bronevsky is greeting us here. He is the head of the Omsk region. Here and his friends, along with his people, Cossacks, Dr. Liebestein, Duke Didiani, and 7 Cossacks are waiting for Tursun, grandson of Bukay-Han. He is waiting. He really wants to meet Tursun, since they will be discussing the formation of Karkaraly County. Tursun is asking him not to establish it in Kent County Gorge area. Why? Because Tursun knows it is a sacred land of our ancestors. The best wintering spots are located here. This is how the Kyzyl Kent Palace was discovered, or rather what was left of it. Since then, travelers, geographers, historians, ethnographers were visiting these mysterious ruins on numerous occasions. They had left valuable descriptions of this amazing building. The picturesque gorge contained a 2-story cruciform building made of rough stone. The roofing was absent. The remains of the walls were plastered. 4 large columns supported galleries on the upper floor and the attic. Kazakhs worshipped it as a sacred place. However, in the mid-20th century, the building underwent further destruction. During the period of collective farming, locals used the stone for outbuildings constructions. There are only 2 photos left of the early 20th century, made most likely by Ivan Chikaninsky, a researcher of Kazakh antiquities, who visited the Kyzyl Kent Valley in 1928. Based on this picture, we were able to make the project of partial reconstruction. Moreover, the descriptions told us it was a 2-story building. Pictures also confirmed that it had 2 floors. Therefore, in the project of restoration, we were considering to recover some elements that would show that there was a 2nd level. Kyzyl Kent Palace was the only building of vast territories of Sararka that had survived since the Middle Ages. Some argued that it used to be a pagan temple, a home for an anchorite. Others that it was a Kalmyk monastery. There is a Kazakh folklore love story between daughter of Jungar Khan and a Kazakh boy, which explains the origins of this ancient building. The daughter of Jungar Khan, when they reached Karkaralinsk, the Kent Mountains, on their way from the Jaik-Volga rivers area, they were caught in nipping frost. They were forced to spend the winter here and built this temple. But this is just a legend. A new stage in the study of the temple began in 1985, when the archaeological excavations of the ancient ruins of Kyzyl Kent had started. It was some sort of mound back then. 2 young at the time and presently well-known archaeologists Juman Smailov and Arman Beysenov within 2 years started the excavation of this remarkable complex. The archaeological site had been repeatedly looted over a century and a half time. Therefore, there were not many artifacts found there, but all items were indicative. They confirmed the intuition of the scholars about uniqueness of this historical monument. A coin was found, Chinese coin of the Emperor Suan-Ye times, which also indicates the date. It was printed by Imperial House. Somewhere in the middle of the 17th century, which again confirms the dating of the construction of the monastery. These unique artifacts are kept at the Museum of Karaganda University, named after Yevgeny Buketov. Among the valuable exhibits, small pieces of fretwork from the decoration of the temple. It is a very refined work. Every detail is carved with wood. It is covered with mastic and painted on both sides. Dark red and gold are distinctive colors of the Buddhist temples of Lamaism. Most likely, these items were imported. They were probably made in Tibet and brought to decorate the temple. However, in order to affirm that in the center of Sararkar, far away from Tibet, was a Buddhist temple, more compelling evidence was needed. Therefore, in the early 90s of the last century, specialists of the Material Culture Heritage Scientific Research Institute started their work on Kyzyl Kent. They made the conclusion that it was not a single temple, but a whole complex of religious buildings. The central object of the complex is the main temple, which is a cross-shaped building made of rough stone and mortar. The walls are plastered. It had a complex roof in the style of Buddhist architecture. Such layout can be seen in many Buddhist temples. 2 rows of 6 columns separated the central hall into 3 parts. They supported the gallery of the 2nd floor and roof with skylights. The other 4 pillars were supporting the balcony above the entrance, from which lamas playing various musical instruments called for the services during major religious holidays. The main temple of Kyzyl Kent was built according to the canons of Tibetan Buddhism. The basis of any Buddhism structure is the mandala. Here's a quadrate inscribed in a circle. Then there's a circle inscribed into a quadrate. As a resulting, the forms of quadrate turn into a cross. And these are the crosses we see here. That is, we say that the basis of the main room is a form of mandala.
Рядом с правой стороны, если смотреть на главный фасад, с правой стороны располагался по канонам.
If you look from the right side, according to Buddhist architecture rules, there should be an auxiliary temple, Dokshida. This is the guardian genius of the temple. A temple guarded the main building.
Храм, который охранял главное сооружение.
It rarely happens that a Tibetan temple stands without such a building, a talisman. Its facade is oriented to the southwest, just like the main temples. The residues of red paint were found on the inside of the walls and white on external side. The remnants of stones from the 4 columns were found inside the building. There was another small building on the left side of the main temple. Some mysterious sites were discovered here during archaeological excavations of the temple. That is, they were mysterious back then. It was unclear what they were meant for. While studying the principles of similar monastic buildings, we concluded that suburgans could have been placed here. It is typical for this situation for Buddhism.
Обязательная атрибутика в данной ситуации. То есть это характерно именно для буддизма.
Suburgan is a storage place for religious relics. Some suburgans were the burial places, but more often it was imbued with sacred texts or relics. In Mongolia, Kalmykia, you can see the most bizarre types of suburgans. Another attribute of the Tibetan architecture, fresh spring water pond in front of the main temple. A young birch grove had risen around it. Another building, hidden from the eyesight, stands behind it. This building was most likely built later and served as living quarters. Calcified bones of animals have been found here. That is, there was a fireplace. It was a sacrificial spot for local deities and llamas. Please notice, the main entrance facing the south is connected with this ritual spot. That is, it was a shrine, an altar. You get there through the water. That is, here we are facing two major elements. Passage through the cleansing fire, water, and you get inside the temple. Fire and water, the indispensable attributes of Tibetan or Mongolian monasteries. To enter the main temple, one ought to go through all circles of prayers and incantations around suburgans and temples, following the course of the sun, and then read a prayer in the garden temple. In the middle of the valley, on an elevated ground, there was a platform for mobile accommodation, yurts. Scientists have been wondering over who has built this monastery in the steppes of Central Asia, how Buddhism penetrated these areas. It would be useful to address the depth of the history of adoption of Tibetan Buddhism, Lamaism. Buddhism enters Tibet in the end of 16th, the beginning of the 17th century, in form of several schools. The school of Gelug is one of benefactors. It is one of the largest ones. In this form it enters the nomadic world, Mongolia and Buryatia, in 16th century. It penetrates China and becomes the basis of new movements in society. By the mid-17th century, Jungar Khanate expanded its borders to the west, to the territory of modern Kazakhstan. Oirats adopt Buddhism as a religion of the state, which was the driving force behind the transition from nomadic to settled lifestyle. Every major Oirat feudal lords built monasteries, with settlements growing around them. Here are two significant figures, Batur Hon Taiji and Kundulen Ubashi. One represents the house of Choros, the other of Hoshaut. So Kundulen Ubashi leaves Tarbagatai to roam in central Kazakhstan, in steppes of central Kazakhstan. He becomes friend with Kazakh Khan Jangir, supports him in battles against Choros' house. By the way, Kazakh folklore has stories about Kalmyks living as nomads right next to them. Well, so does Kundulen Ubashi. He organizes a construction, since every noble Oirat considered it his duty to build a monastery in honor of his new religion. Most likely he's the founder and the builder.
Своей новой религиозной принадлежности. Скорее всего, он и является основателем и строителем.
Jungars call Kyzyl Kent Canyon Kyzyl Kenish, Red Treasure Chest. No one knows what treasures Kyzyl Kent monks stored over here, but they chose this place for a reason. Russian written sources reported that at the top of one of the mountains, not far from this monastery, these ruins, they had found a copper figure. It is a statue of Buddha for sure. Inside this copper statue was a manuscript written in Old Mongolian. It is most likely an Oirat written language.
Написано на старомонгольском. Ну, это, скорее всего, оиратская письменность.
In the vicinity of Kent Gorge there is a lot of rock crystal. In the crevices of rocks, plenty of juniper. Rock crystal played an important role in religious rituals. According to Buddhist beliefs, it is concentrating vital powers. A juniper was necessary for kindling censers and ritual fires. Besides, there are many caves in the Kent Mountains where monks could meditate, pray for salvation of human souls.
Даже это не пещера.
It's not even a cave, it is a small hollow in the rocks. a small niche. These niches, too, in their own way, attracted followers of Buddhism, Lamaism. Where else would one cut off this thread, a web of desires? Only seclusion. I must say that so far this place is venerated among the local population. They come here and leave inscriptions. They come here to the Tree of Wishes. Junga Monastery was not merely a spiritual and religious center. Whereat nobility paid visits, caravans were stopping. It was some sort of a small town with its own life, a small fortress. Blast furnaces were found not far from temple complex. There was a metal processing site. Kent Monastery was never a palace, as it was called among the people. It was built for strategic and religious purposes. However, it wasn't long until the monastery stopped functioning. According to several artifacts, in just a few years' time. Why did monks leave this place? Perhaps intestine wars of Jungars were to blame. As a result, Kundalenu Bashi left these lands. His camps were moved to Emba and Sirt rivers area, next to Kalmyks of Volga. Monastery, abandoned by people, gradually turned into ruins. Nowadays, a unique monument of Jungar Khanate culture, which has left a deep mark in the history of Kazakhstan, is one of the historic landmarks of Karkaly National Park.